We do need to kick the program off by recognizing the passing of another legendary professional wrestler and member of a legendary professional wrestling family, Chavo Guerrero Sr., the past week since we last did the show.
Yeah, I guess he's probably best known for his run in Los Angeles. He got there in like the summer of '75 when Louis Tillett was booking, and then he stayed, and Leo Garibaldi put him with a young Roddy Piper. It was Roddy Piper's first real break. So when the LA territory was dying, you had Piper and Chavo and the entire Guerrero family. And that really was the only thing holding that territory up for so many years. And he was a major star and a big star almost everywhere he went. But I'm curious, did you ever run into him? I know that in many ways, him and Hector, the Alamo Busters, replaced the Midnight Express in terms of placement in Mid-South after you guys went to World Class. But were you ever around him?
I not only ran into him, I managed him on Mid-South television one time during that run when Midnight Express had just left, gone over to Dallas, and Chavo and Hector had come in to be a heel team. And I actually, it was a doubleheader that weekend because I rode over from Dallas and back to the TV in Shreveport, Louisiana with Boyd Pierce. And that was just hilarious and just stories and et cetera. But, the deal on the TV was that I had put up some kind of money that anybody could take the rock and roll out. And I was in Chavo and Hector's corner for a TV match. It was sometime in January 1985. So look it up, you folks that have the libraries in order at your fingertips. But, and we had a match with the rock and roll on TV. And I don't even remember the finish off the top of my head, except I took some kind of outlandish bump off the apron that the camera missed when Robert drop kicked me or something. And I didn't see the rest of it, but no, I did. And as a matter of fact, the first time I saw, cause I obviously as an avid reader of the wrestling magazines, I had seen Chavo and the pictures, the main event run in Los Angeles and et cetera, but that was before the days of VCRs and videotapes. So I'd never actually seen him wrestle until, believe it or not, first time I ever saw him was live in the Omni in Atlanta on the undercard of the night they turned on Dusty in the Cage.
Also summer of 1980. Wow.
Yes. And it was Chavo Guerrero versus Dutch Mantell. And besides being a great match, I remember it specifically because one of the greatest wrestling that will be in my book of wrestling photography one day. Chavo at the time did this spot where it wasn't a moonsault. He could not only both backflip and land on his feet in the middle of the ring off the top rope, but he also could do a thing where he ran up the ropes and then did a backflip and sort of body blocked you on the way back. But at any rate, I have a picture of Chavo Guerrero up in the air, flipping backwards with his feet completely up over his head, 2 feet above Dutch Mantell, who was standing straight up, coming off the top rope in midair. It's a fucking great picture. And so he left an impression with that, from my vantage point. But we worked for the Guerrero family when they were still promoting in El Paso. They were the promoters for World Class out there. El Paso was the Guerrero's town. So we got a chance, the Midnight Express and I, to work a couple of times out there. And Chavo was Gory was obviously the originator, but Chavo was kind of like, Senior was kind of like the glue of the family.
It's interesting you bring up, the picture you took of him, and in many ways, before people got Japanese tapes, before the Great Muta arrived in 1989, it's really Chavo and, believe it or not, Lanny Poffo who first did a lot of the moves that would later be pretty regular in wrestling. The moonsault body press, all these things. It was those two guys who did it before anyone I could really think of on American TV.
Yeah. And also then when Hector, came into, actually I saw Hector before I saw Chavo in wrestle in person or anywhere, because Hector came into the Tennessee territory in 1979 as a babyface. And the thing is, the people who knew the name Guerrero from the magazines and from Chavo, from his big brother, it kind of got Hector over a little more that he was related to this famous wrestler at the time, because Chavo was way more famous at the time than Hector was. But Hector didn't come and try to work lucha style in Tennessee. He was able, like they all were, to adapt the best parts of that into the American style so it wouldn't completely throw your fucking opponents off and nobody would understand what you were doing. They took the good shit and they put it into, because they work every style. So they put the good shit in the American style. And when you would see Hector selling like an American, and I don't mean to sound racist, but selling American style and working American style with guys who didn't know how to work lucha, but then he would uncork the flying ankle head scissors. It was so smooth. Or a flip over the back when the guy tried the backdrop, he'd incorporate some lucha in there and it looked fucking great and he got him over. But you can't reinvent the wheel, but you can make white walls and steel belts and things. You can shine it up a little bit.
Yeah. And, and you think about it, Chavo was able to do lucha and he was a star in Mexico. He was able to work, as you put it, the American style, and he was a star in, just every territory you went to, Los Angeles, Southwest, Mid-South. And then, of course, he was able to work in Japan. I think, believe it or not, Misawa once said that his favorite opponent was Chavo Guerrero. So that says something.
Yeah, well, and then they grew up around the business. They understood the business of how the business worked, as well as being students of everybody that they'd, seen and worked with and et cetera. And Eddie was obviously most famous in the end, but Chavo was Gory's first son, right? He was, if Mondo was the oldest, Chavo got over bigger. And maybe because of the run in Los Angeles with Piper, they weren't that old, either one of them then. So,
well, he had the charisma. That's the thing. Chavo had, I think, more charisma than Hector or Mondo. Eddie eventually had the charisma, but even early in Eddie's career, he didn't have it. Chavo had it, and Chavo was instantly a star. And you talk about 1980, he was on that Omni show. Just a couple of weeks later, he's on the Shea Stadium show against Tatsumi Fujinami.
I was just thinking they're kind of like the Hispanic Armstrong family. They had the father that kind of had everything, and then each one of the sons got a piece of it, and maybe the youngest one had the most personality, and it's very there's
that's interesting. Yeah,
there's comparisons there, like the the Lincoln Kennedy thing. But anyway, I was just thinking anyway. It seems like that. When a legend passes away like that, he gets a lot of attention for a short period of time, and then everybody, goes back and gets it, because it happens so quickly now. We get immune to it. And
yeah, it's true. Just think about a couple of years ago, we lost Piper and Dusty in the same year, and it's just, unfortunately, it happens one after another now because of age and because of health issues. I think Chavo, what was it, liver cancer?
I believe so. I think I read that. And he was almost 70 at this point. It's just hard for me to. That's what Lawler said to me and Bolin when he saw us at that show in Jackson. I think he said, "How old are you now?" And I told him, he said, "It's hard for me to manage you guys. Hard for me to imagine you guys that old." And then, then how will that make you? No, anyway.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, we want to send our condolences out to the Guerrero family. And Hector was, I was probably around more often than any of the other brothers because he worked for me in Smoky Mountain. He was living in Knoxville at the time and may still, I'm not sure. But, we send our condolences.